Welcome everybody to the stream. I hope everything is working well because I haven't done one of these in a while. And yeah, I'm a little bit nervous because I had already some technical issues, but thank you very much for passing by, checking out the stream. I want to get in the habit of making a lot more of these streams often. So your advice and your comments here are very welcome. So please let me know if you're here, if you're listening, if everything is okay. I will appreciate if you leave it in the comments. And yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about what I want to do with the streams and the plans that I have going on forward. I want to start doing kind of like a catch up with the videos that I post and some video analysis. And if you have any questions, any problems you're dealing with, this is a good place to ask and to share them with. So that way we can address them. And the best I can do to solve said question, whatever problem you may be going through, I'll do my best. And also, I want to start doing live streams for the members only, where I will be sharing some of the like kind of behind the scenes, what I'm going through in practices, and what are some of the things that I'm currently working on, some of the things that I want to improve on, and it's very specific issues that anybody may have. I will also would like to start sharing those, like helping with those. Today's stream is going to be directly tied to the last video I posted. I recently posted a video on when to attack. And I said there are three main times when it's good to attack. One of them being when the opponent moves, the other one when the opponent attacks after the opponent attacks, and lastly, when your pressure breaks them. Now, I went along on that video a little bit about making those moments happen, but also you have to be ready from when they happen, even though maybe you didn't intend to. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that today. We're gonna see how that looks like in a more professional level Shiai. So I chose a Osaka versus Fukuoka Shiai that you can find in the All Japan Kendo YouTube channel. So we're gonna go through that and see what we can learn today. Um, Jason, how are you doing? Long time no talk. How's everything? Thank you very much for passing by. And Dale, our baby Dale. So thank you for passing by and letting me know everything's working. Um, so yeah, the idea here, I'm going to start doing more of the streams often. I still didn't have a full setup. I had to improvise with some stuff. So if anything's funky, I apologize in advance. Um, the one thing I want to make sure that I point out when it comes about being mindful of when is the right moment to attack is that you cannot be overthinking it. You cannot be thinking constantly during your Jigeko, when should I attack? You have to kind of start making it happen naturally, kind of let your body and your brain to naturally start figuring out these moments. And this is actually a conversation that I had yesterday with a sensei that you cannot go back during Jigeko, during Shiai, of course you go back. You have to keep pushing forward and you have to start learning when is the right moment to attack. But if you want to have a moment to think about, was this the right time to attack? Was this okay and stuff? You should do it after you execute a technique. You cannot be overwhelming yourself. You cannot be putting so much thought before you actually do something because you end up doing nothing. So that's something very important to keep in mind. What I'm going to do today, let me see. Okay, we're here. In this Shiai that I'm going to be playing today, I am going to start looking at what happens when somebody decides to attack. So whether they strike or whether they connect an Ippon or not, I want to break down when do they attack, why did they attack, and these are the type of things that you want to start figuring out for yourself. Why did you attack? Why did your opponent attack? Did you do something to make it happen? Or did the person just randomly came in? Were you prepared? Were you not prepared? All of these things we're going to be talking about today. So let me know in your comments if you're struggling with something specific and we can, tag, like solve that and analyze that. Okay. So yeah, let's get it going. Let me know if you can hear well the video as well, please. I will appreciate that. Okay. So right at the bat, we get, and this is very common to see in Shiai, right? Like a very aggressive entrance. Hold on, let me just get to the point. So you see how the person on the left, the red, yeah, the person on the left throws an attack and throws, it makes a motion from very far away, right? So it almost looks like he's just kind of like testing the grounds and he's stopping back. The result for that is really the opponent kind of just flinching or, putting, losing the center, but still being guarded. Um, the main thing you wanna take in mind here is that I feel that there was nothing really that happened, no interaction that happened that caused the fact that says I'm ready to attack. I think this is purely as if I'm showing aggression, right? There wasn't any communication yet, which that's okay. Oh, and by the way, and if you saw what it looks like as an opportunity, a moment to attack after the opponent attacks you, right here. Hold on, let me just go back a little bit. So if you're gonna see a person on the left throws kind of like a fake attack here, and then after that moment goes, the opponent, after he went defensive, he decides to switch it back and throw an attack. This is a very important mentality to have during your Jigeko and get used to it so you can exhibit it during your Shiai. If you're constantly just stopping, then that's going to be the habit. Good habit to create, I think. Again, so there's a lot of pressure coming in. Now, the one way you create pressure is by closing the distance. So a lot of times we tend to attack from very far out without really any communication, kind of like what happened at the beginning of the match, where there was just an attack, but there was nothing happening here. It's very important to start figuring out the distances where it goes from right before the shinai touches, when the shinai touches, when the shinai cross, and then into Isokito no Mae. So all these distances are important to start communicating that pressure and start figuring out when the right opportunity is to attack. Oh, sorry, I should be looking here, I guess. Um, so yeah, that's the one point I wanted to share there. So if you watch here, good way to create pressure. Person on the right, the white player, he steps in and then the pressure move red back, right? But again, because this distance was saved, the opponent was engaged, it wasn't really a moment to attack. If White would have thrown maybe a Kote because he had like an opening for Kote there, I think he would have been far enough where he would have missed it because Red was already in motion, he was engaged. This is key point if you want to be safe during Kendo. Always be engaged. So this also very cool point to talk about right here. Hold on. How you're gonna see how red goes in forward sharply. So you see he has that going forward where it's not really an attack. It's more of a, I'm gonna say, a feint where he's trying to get a reaction, but then not really committed. Maybe his footwork wasn't in the right position and he didn't see a clear opening that what he was expecting. And then he just kind of hesitated to attack. So they both kind of came into a stalemate, but they're going so eye to be safe. And then sharply separate into distance. So this attack right here, going backwards for the Hikiwasa, it's always a good habit to get into. And quick pointer that um, I actually discussed this week with the sensei at my dojo is that I ask him, like, every time that he goes through, every time that he does technique, he's so quick to be in a position where he can execute hikiwasa quickly. Although he's very tall and he's very, like he's very strong, he attacks very sharply, yet he's always good to come back into a position where he's good to throw hikiwasa. And the number one thing that he said to practice if you want to improve this is during your kihon. Let me just go in here. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so during your kihon, after you go through your basics, after you go through your attack, make sure that when you turn around, you're ready as quickly as possible and sharply back into kamae, back into position to go forward without tumbling around, without losing your footing. You want to go with your technique, have good sanshin, good follow through, be able to turn around and be ready to go again for a technique. That's his advice if you want to improve how to be ready after an attack to go for hikiwasa. Because although a lot of times the way the interaction goes is that we attack and we end up in this position, a lot of us kind of end up losing balance, are too heavy on the top, so our legs are not quite there, or it's hard to change direction from going forward into going backwards, right? So try to always keep this in mind if you want to improve this point in your kendo. That was his advice. So next, okay, keep going, continue. Sorry guys, let me try to fix this screen here so I can see the chat constantly, so I'm not worried about going back and forth. Okay, hopefully, oh, okay, that didn't help. Sorry, let me just fix this here. Again, sorry guys, I haven't streamed in a while, so I'm a little bit rusty on what I should be doing. Okay, let's go. So when it comes to team matches, I think that maybe the first fight ends up being a little bit uh, aggressive, but a lot of times, there's a big fight between how to get the first point because it will set up the rhythm of the match. So it's like a lot of stake, right? So you don't want to lose on the first match. You don't want to let your team kind of have to carry that weight. So it's a lot of tension I feel in the first match. This is a good example of attacking after the opponent attacks. If you watch here, red throws a technique and then comes in. Look, red comes in to throw a technique, kind of looks like a kote, and then maybe he was gonna go for like kote men. He misses it, but white is engaged. So you see, right after that moment, he's already going in for a technique and tries a man. Although he didn't have the opening to get the point, he really had the intention of taking that opportunity if there was that opening. Now, another thing to notice here is how is white responding to that pressure. So let me just say this in in the video, I talked about how, of course, you want to close the distance to create pressure to get a reaction from the opponent, right? But that's kind of like the ideal world. In reality, what ends up happening, if you, especially when you have somebody that is good as well, you want to put pressure, and a lot of times what you get back is not a reaction, but you get pressure from them as well. And then a lot of times, what that feels like as the attacking person is that you put pressure and then they start giving pressure, you attack, but then they get you because they're kind of like fighting with that pressure, fighting with that timing, right? So a lot of times it might feel that you're going first, yet they still get you. But a lot of times because of that, because they're anticipating you coming in already and they're countering your pressure. So those are things that you want to keep in mind when you're trying to work into being the first to hit versus being the first to attack versus being the first to move. And it's a lot. I know, like so please, like if you're working on just in the moment of going forward, don't overwhelm yourself with a lot of this stuff because it's a lot. And if you're doing Jigeko, you're thinking about this stuff, you end up freezing and not doing anything at all. So yeah, be mindful of that. But if you watch here, white is not stepping back, is stepping forward, this causes red to start moving forward and attacking, right? So that interaction started because white gave that pressure. I think this is a very important point to keep in mind and to start thinking about when you're building up how to improve your semi, how to improve your pressure and the communication between you and your opponent. Very good continuity of the on technique. This is very important as well, right? So we're seeing a lot of back and forth when it comes to pushing, see, pushing and attacking. I think White has a very good rhythm in this match. If you watch, he responds very well to the pressure given to his opponent, and it looks a lot like Red is kind of more feinting than doing semi. You see, this interaction I think is very interesting because White kind of has a forward intention, right? He's coming forward where Red is trying to get a motion, yet he's not really committing forward. He's actually going backwards and loading his way back, which can help him push forward much quicker. But again, it's kind of already kind of retreating where White is coming forward, always bringing that back leg quicker forward to attack, but not holding back and engaging immediately when he sees an opportunity. I think that's very important to keep in mind and very important to see onto how this can develop the fight. Because at some point, that going backwards may cause you to at some point that going backwards may cause you to hesitate and not really take an opportunity, where if you're always going forward, you always have the mentality that whenever there's an opportunity, you are ready. Ideally, what you're looking to do in a match is take advantage of any mistake that the opponent might make, right? But on top of that, you want to make the opponent make mistakes, but you have to be ready for both. I hope that makes sense. Let me know what you think. Bye. So another example what it looks like to attack after your opponent attack is right here. If you look, Red comes in with a guard, very, very sporty if you ask me. But after the opponent throws that weird kote kind of a reaction, he immediately goes around to go for that man. Thankfully for White, he was covered. He didn't get into a position where he was open for the opponent, but I think it's a really good opportunity that Red took to attack after the. Wow, that was a good interaction. Kendo Journey, thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here and being a member of the stream. I'm doing another stream after this one. I kind of like a members only stream, so if you want to stick around, it's gonna be a little bit different format. I'll explain about it in a minute. So this is a very interesting interaction, and the reason why I want to break it down is because I think this happens often, right? Look at White. He comes from very far, and then he does kind of like Nidamasa, he does kind of like two techniques or breaks the rhythm into two techniques to try to get an opening and an attack. So look, he comes in, he gets into a closer distance with a Katsugi, and then he goes for men. I think this is a good technique to use to break the rhythm. If you're trying to, if kind of like the match is kind of stale and the same thing happens over and over, I think this is a good way to make the rhythm change and get a possibility for ippon. And if you don't get an ippon too, you kind of start changing the mentality of the opponent because now they might be worried not only when you have your close game but also when you have your far game. So they cannot they can get on edge after you do something like this. So this one, I think it's one of those moments where uh Artesia. If I'm butchering your names, guys, please, I'm sorry. But that's the easiest part to say your name. How to counter Yoda no Kamae. I'll talk about it in a second. Actually, I had very good advice this past couple of weeks because the sensei that I practice with, he does both. He does Yoda and Chudan on every practice. So I think I have a couple of good things to say. So, but watch this for a second. If you watch, okay, let me just go further back. Okay, from this distance, okay, I I I like to engage myself into the technique, into the moment from this distance. You want to make sure that you're ready from this distance. So at that point, he starts closing in the distance. He comes in with a little bit of a sharper motion, but at this point he kind of stretching up his legs, right? His right leg is a little bit far from this back leg, and that makes it where it's harder for him to lunge further. So I don't think he's planning on lunging at this point, right? So he readjusts the back leg because he wants to get that upper distance, and then it makes it where he's engaged, yet his opponent is close in the distance. He hasn't moved. He's kind of pacing the rhythm, if that makes any sense. Then he gets a reaction though, right? Because of course, somebody coming in that quick, you're going to tense up. So he gets a reaction, but immediately after the opponent kind of decides to attack, he comes in and tries a technique. So he almost got it. It was a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, but this is a good example of both sides giving pressure, how they respond and how they reply to pressure. So, okay, let's do a quick let's do a quick break on that so I can address Artesia's question. So you're asking about Yoda no Kamana, right? So a lot of times it can be scary, not because Yoda no Kama is scary, it's because you don't do often against them. So if you're normally getting score on, like much easier than, against somebody that's doing Chudan, it's not necessarily because Jordan is better. It's a lot of times because you don't have enough experience to go against it. I don't know if that makes any sense. So, but there's some basic advice against Jordan. First is that if you're fighting against Jordan, always the key advice that I would tell you on Kamae is kind of point the tip towards their kote, right? Towards here. So your Kamae is not so much center as normally would be. It's kind of, sorry, let me just make it work. it's easier to see. So it's not so centered like this. It's kind of a little bit out and a little bit up. But I think that the problem with that, um, okay, there's no problem with that. The problem starts when people start kind of like trying to cover up against that shinai that's up there. And the more you raise up your hand, the more exposed your kote is going to be. Although, because you have the tip here, it might feel that you are covered. Your kote is exposed, especially because remember that Jordan player has the ability to go with one hand, but also with two hands and have as much controls as you would from Chuda. Okay, so that's number one. Um, the next tip that that uh, I was given recently, the next tip I want to share is that one good thing that you can do against Jordan players is push them to attack, especially push them to attack your men because they're coming from a far distance, or hopefully they're coming from a far distance. So you have the opportunity to do Suriage men. That's one good way to counter a Jordan player because although the sword might come down strong, it's being held by one hand. So deflecting it becomes a little bit easier than when having two hands on the sword. Um, so normally what you want to do is have pressure against them. Okay, so Jordan players tend to be very good at giving pressure. So the best defense against them is to give them more pressure, to keep pressuring them, especially making them rush into an attack. For men, it's one of the best ones. So when they go for kote, also they become more exposed. So you have to push them. Oh, actually, Jason is a Jordan player, so you can chime in. I would love that because we actually did a stream together about that. You should catch up on that too and do another one. But uh, Kote after hitting Kote, they can become very exposed. Most Jordans though, like no, not most Jordans, like the average Jordan player. There are very good Jordan players out there that are really good at bringing that sword back. So you have to be careful with that. You cannot assume that because they already attacked, they cannot attack again. As a matter of fact, the sensei I practice with, he did something to me. What was it? He went for men, and normally like people return the sword back in for another attack this way. But he did something like he went like after he attacked, he went out this way and he attacked from for the man from the side. So it's kind of crazy. But you want to make sure that you don't let them uh be confident or be comfortable after they attack because they can get you. You cannot get comfortable after they attack just because thinking like, oh, they already attacked. Now there's an opening. There's a time to rest. No, no, no. You want to keep that pressure because especially if they're a good Jordan player, they're really good at adjusting the distance, bringing the sword back around and hitting. But I digress. Going back to the original question, the best way I think to counter Jordan is pushing them to attack for men so you can counter, you can do Suri Agawasa and hit them. A lot of times for me, especially when I am fighting against taller people than me, it's hard for me to do like I men or the mana men or try to get the sword out of the way from with my men because I just feel that it's coming from so high that it kind of just pushes my sword to the side. But there is actually a solution for that. A lot of times, this can go for a while. And Jason, we can probably do 3 streams just on that. But let me see how can I bring this up. A lot of times, the reason why we miss the I man is because how we do our men. So a lot of times we're told to practice a very compact, a very sharp man, right? Like you do a compact man to be quicker. But having variety on the way that you do your men is very important, especially depending how the other person does men, you can counter that. So if your men is very compact, a lot of times the Jordan player that is coming maybe from here, that's coming this way, is getting the sword out of the way. Even though your men can be quicker, your sword gets out of the way because the fatter part of their shinai is pushing the thinnest part of yours, and then they can hit your man. So a a way to go against that, or somebody that's doing that against you, even Chudan against Chudan, is bring the tip a little bit higher so you can do that to them. I don't know if that makes sense. Of course, this is not something you can be thinking as you go, but if you see somebody that has that habit, you can start kind of like preparing for that. So you can make sure that you do a little bit of a bigger swing, that compact swing that we like so much because it's, I guess, a little faster. But that upper swing, I think sometimes can come very nicely to help you against some type of men. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know. Did I answer your question? I feel like I talked a lot, but maybe I went all over the place. Oh, by the way, this is the second match already. Okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit if you don't mind. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward here to this hippo. Okay. Oh, I think there's a big delay on when I speak and when the messages come in. Maybe. Maybe I have delayed on. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I haven't done this for a hot minute, so I am so sorry. I'm catching up. Um, so Terima Kasi. Sorry if I'm butchering that, but you're welcome. If you have any questions, just feel free to bring it up. And Jason, you said another great point. Makes total sense. Thank you. These are things that I'm, like I'm studying. I'm progressing into. So as I discover them, I will share them. Okay. So we have, I think, an awesome Ippon. Very risky Ippon right here, but great nonetheless. So look what's happening. Red is giving pressure. I mean, white is giving pressure. Red is kind of on the defense, is trying to keep the distance. And as this happens, as he comes in forward, I think that he comes in because he cannot handle that pressure. He feels like he has to do something. Uh, you got to remember, in Kendo, it's not only about that one moment in the match. It has to do also about what's been happening throughout the match and how you might be feeling and how that can be affecting the decisions you make at any given point. So he comes in with this attack, and white, because he was ready pushing forward, he throws in a very sharp, a very compact kote that you got to remember it comes from the feet. Look at the feet. He's pushing with the back foot. He's moving his body slightly, like he's kind of staying in place, but he's moving, his body's creating momentum. And then both feet, you see, both feet are on the air, and he lands with his body and the kote. If you want to have sharp kote like this, you have to learn how to do it in a very short distance and create power without that big momentum. And the way you do it is from your footwork, from your body, and great compact kote gives them the ippon. So I think that this is one of the moments where this is a point because the opponent had to come. He felt pressure. That being said, a lot of times those moments that I talked about, when is the right moment to attack, can be blurred because can be blurred one with the other. Somebody can move because they move because of them, or somebody can move because your pressure make them move. So you have to keep in mind that you want to take advantage of the mistakes the opponent might make, but you want to also make the opponent make mistakes. The only way to train this is to always be engaged with that back leg and going forward. Right now, one of the things that I'm working on myself is making these feelings more natural and feeling that I'm not wasting energy, that I'm not getting tired just by being in command and constantly pushing forward, trying to make my footwork a little bit more fluid and try to have continuity between my techniques, going back into kamae, giving pressure, and continuing keeping the fight in a rhythm, or not in a rhythm, keeping the fight engaged. Especially because one of my main focus on right now is working and improving my kendo for my Rokudan Shinsa. So I think these are very important points that are needed to start reaching that level. So I need to definitely fix a lot of things and improve and learn a bunch of other things, which is why I want to start doing the members only streams and kind of give you I'm not gonna say vlog, but like a diary of what I'm practicing on and what advancements I'm making. And that's going to be the theme of my next stream, like a weekly check-in on what I learned and what are some of the things advice I got. And of course, if you have any problems, anything you want to discuss there that you want to work on specifically, any videos you want to send me, feel free to do so. And that's going to be the theme. Like I'm going to make a weekly theme for members in that stream. So I'm going to do that next. I think I'm going to cut it off here. I'm sorry, guys, I started a little bit late because I had some technical issues, but I'm working on it. I'll do this ones weekly so that way we can get a little bit more engagement and definitely better um what's it called a better rhythm. The time might change, adapting, and the days might change a little bit so that way I can adapt and find out the best times, but I will start making this more often. So thank you very much for being here. If you haven't, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what are some of the things you would like to see from these streams. Your advice is always welcome. And if you would like to watch the members only stream that I'm about to do next, just make sure to become a member and pass by, say hello, and you get a bunch of other perks by being a member. So thank you again for being here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Okay, take care. Bye bye.